In case you didn't notice by now, this review is going to be a little bit different. It's not going to be my who is this for type of format, though I will be going back to that for future devices and for other ones. It's just that I'm in Tokyo right now, in Japan. Actually, for this particular scene, I'm at a shrine at the base of Mount Fuji. It's nice and quiet here, which is why I wanted to use this opportunity to introduce this particular type of review. I've been using the Oppo Reno 10x zoom for a little while now, but since we have an opportunity here to hang out with Oppo with this phone, get some shots, get some photos, get some videos, I thought that I would just use this context as a place to give my thoughts on this phone. It is often really tough to find a quiet spot in a big touristy area like this. This is Sensoji Temple, one of the oldest, if not the oldest temple in Tokyo, and it's a big tourist area. However, we're not talking about that. You're seeing a lot of photos from the Oppo Reno 10x zoom here, but I do want to talk to you a little bit about the other aspects of the phone, and we'll start off with the design. Now, I actually think this is a really good looking device. The phone is a little bit big. It gives me those vibes of the OnePlus 7 Pro, where the phone was just a tiny bit too big for one-handed usage. But again, it's those flourishes that I like. The tiny little nub on the back that helps keep the cameras, or rather the lenses, from getting scratched when you have the phone on a table. And then of course you have that pop-up camera. It's different from other pop-up cameras, and it looks like a shark's fin, it looks like a mountain. You could say whatever you want about it. It's different, and that's the point of that flourish on this phone. It just gives it a little bit of a flair that makes this phone unique. As far as performance is concerned, you really don't have to worry about much when it comes to this phone. You have the Snapdragon 855, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and 256 gigabytes of onboard storage. That SIM slot, though, can accommodate a second SIM and also an SD card, which is pretty dope. You have a lot of options on here. Obviously, the only thing that's really missing is a headphone jack. You're probably going to see a lot of comparisons between this phone and the OnePlus 7 Pro. And with the OnePlus 7 Pro, I said that screen, while it was a great-looking screen, it was also a little bit too big. The phone itself was a little bit too big. I get the same feeling with this. This is a 1080p panel, an AMOLED panel. And again, it looks great. It makes colors really pop. But you know what? In one hand, it's just a little bit of that slipperiness. However, there's a curve on the back that keeps it from slipping about too crazily. One thing I keep finding interesting about these pop-up cameras is that it provides a bit of a conundrum when it comes to biometrics, because the fingerprint reader, the in-display fingerprint reader of this phone, is a good performer. There are even some nice effects that add a little bit of that flair, a little bit of that flourish to when you push your finger down on the screen. But then that shark fin pop-up, or the mountain-like pop-up, or whatever Oppo calls it, when it pops up and it recognizes your face in that split second, it's also really cool. So it's one of those things where every time I want to use the phone, I'm almost thinking to myself, like, which one do I want to use? Do I want to use my fingerprint, or do I want to use face unlock? It's kind of funny how that happens. And with more and more phones having cool things like this, it's actually something that I have to think about once in a while. Let's talk about ColorOS for a little bit. Gamers are going to have a good time with this phone, not only because of the good performance, but also because there are some features that are catered towards gamers. For example, a built-in screen recorder. There's also the game space, which allows you to keep notifications at bay, so you're not really distracted by anything during your gameplay. There's this one case that the phone comes with that highlights the fact that you have that line going down the bottom. And then when you're trying to restart the phone, or even just to power it off, all of the elements actually come up in a line, basically mirroring or adding symmetry symmetry to the back of the phone, the way that the back is designed. These little things kind of add to the experience, which is why I applaud ColorOS for how far it's come. I remember versions 3, 4, we're on ColorOS version 6 right now, and honestly, it is a good day-to-day version of Android, even if the full screen gestures might take a little bit of getting used to, and some of the elements in the settings might be a little bit convoluted. We found ourselves in a rather quiet portion of Tokyo. This is not too far from Ueno Park, and clearly it is another shrine and a temple. So I just want to talk a little bit about the cameras. Obviously, I've used this phone for a lot of the footage and the photos that you're seeing in this video. It's still, I will say, it is still a bummer that you only use the 48 megapixel sensor, the main sensor, for video. It does allow for a 2x crop. It's a crop. It's a zoom, but it's a crop, but it's a 48 megapixel sensor, so you're able to achieve a 2x zoom without losing too much quality. Obviously, when it comes to photos, you have your portrait modes, be able to get a lot of good shots with a good creamy bokeh in the background, even if the lines can get kind of messed up at times, but it seems to do a good job more often than not. The fact that you can't use the wide angle in video is still a bummer to me, because I love using stuff like that in videos, be able to get a lot of stuff in the shot. The good news is that the options that you do have in this camera are really fun to use. You have great slow-mo. The quality of the video and the photos are quite high, especially from that main sensor. And the wide angle does get a lot in the frame without too much distortion and not a whole lot of blur on the sides. So you can use all of the different modes in the camera application to good effect. And the audio is actually good too, because there's a microphone array that allows for some customization of what you're recording in terms of audio. Overall, I'm really enjoying using this phone, and even though I'm hesitant to say that it is for true vlogging, because you don't get all of the different modes and lenses to use inside of the video modes, for pictures, it's still a really great camera to have in your pocket at all times. Switching over to the actual Oppo Reno 10x zoom for the front-facing camera, obviously it pops out, so it's not like you can clip on any of those wide-angle lenses to get a wider angle, but as you can see here, it's not too bad. I'm not really stretching my arm out way too much for this, and the audio, like I said before, is still pretty great. That said, the stabilization could use a little bit of a boost, and so can the dynamic range. This is still a rather soft front-facing camera, which is pretty par for the course when it comes to Chinese phones, because there tends to be a beauty mode, and that softens things up even more. So front-facing camera, it could do with a little bit better quality in both photos and videos, but overall it's pretty serviceable. And again, it's hiding behind that screen, so for most people that's going to be what the ticket is here for the Oppo Reno. That is indeed Mount Fuji in the background. But I do want to highlight one quick feature of this camera. We have audio recording, which is actually quite good because of the microphone array. However, there's this 3D audio recording feature here, so it's a quiet area. You might be able to hear some of the nature. It's basically trying to record everything around the phone in pretty much any direction possible. So right in front of me, there's the bus, there's some lush mountains. Behind me, of course, are all of the fellow creators who are trying to get pictures of Mount Fuji. So why don't I just let the audio go for a bit.
Okay, this is it.
That thing that you just heard, though, was a portion of the road on the way here that was kind of, it was catered to the tires of every car so that you can hear a certain melody coming out, the song of Mount Fuji. So hopefully with the 3D audio that I mentioned a second ago, you were able to hear that melody. With 4,065 milliamp hours, there's plenty of power to go around, but of course, Oppo is the king of fast charging.
Oh my god, I love their fast charging.
VOOC charging is a great way to get some power in a hurry. Honestly though, one of the big discoveries we made during this trip to Tokyo and Mount Fuji is that while the pop-up camera is supposed to be the main feature of this phone, or one of the main features, so that you can get self-portraits without needing a camera to cut through the screen, well, there are other portraits that this phone is really great at. And I'm not talking about the portrait mode. It's all about those zooms. You do have to have your subject really far away, but then you can compress the background really well and get some pretty dramatic shots of your subjects. It's great for general photographers who do portraiture. This phone and its capabilities have reminded me why zoom is actually a good thing to have. I'm historically not the biggest fan of zoom lenses because I like using wide angle for getting as much in the frame as I can. But if you are honing in on just one particular subject, it does have to be a little bit far, like I keep saying, but once you hone in on a subject, these zooms can become really fun to use. Once you're able to get that minimum focusing distance, then you can go to 6 times or 10 times, or go beyond that with a little bit of a loss in quality, and you can go to town. The Oppo Reno 10x zoom is just another example of how Oppo is really putting a lot of great features into their phones, and they've kind of been the most creative company in this past year or two with other phones that have pop-out cameras. This is just another one of those examples with the shark fin design or the mountain design, and it's been a great asset during these days here in Tokyo and in Mount Fuji, and now in this beautiful shrine. This is such a peaceful place, this Fujisan shrine at the base of Mount Fuji, so I want to enjoy this. I might take a few more pictures and whatnot, but speaking of which, I'm going to go ahead and do this outro like this with pictures and videos over on the side for you to enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. This was kind of a different type of review for me. I generally do reviews that are like, who is this for? But I figured if I was going to be in Tokyo again for the second time in under a month, if I was going to be in Tokyo and exploring a bunch of places and using this phone exclusively for that amount of time, I might as well give you my thoughts about this phone through that particular context. So hopefully you enjoyed something like this. Let me know if this is the kind of review that you want me to be doing more often. I do want to go back to the who is this for format, but really get to the comment sections. Let's have that discussion. I want you to tell me what you think about the Oppo Reno 10x zoom. From there though, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and also hit some likes on these videos so I know that you like what I'm doing here on JV. And from there, I'm just going to head out, enjoy this area, and from there, I'll just remind you to enjoy your tea, everybody.